They say the internet is making everybody ADD. Some people say the internet is making everybody ADHD. When you ask them what the difference is between ADD and ADHD, they say, I don't know. But they know the internet is making people into that, whatever it is. It may actually be doing things. It's definitely changing the way we think. What I'm going to talk about today is the possibility and my experience that the internet is a powerful tool for people who have ADHD. And it may be a powerful tool for a lot of other issues. Now, I'm not an ADHD expert. I have a Bachelor of Science, but it's in physics. And to be honest, all of my best marks were actually in the electives. I took film and fine art painting. But my career has always been about combining information and education, edutainment, they've called it, and so on. My first job was a teacher at the Ontario Science Centre, demonstrating things there. I'm even then doing a Monty Python pose for the picture. And my most recent project was History Bites, where we picked a day in history and we went channel surfing. I've also done, I guess I would say I've had a fairly varied career over the years. I was the co-creator, writer, and at one point the director of Red Green and played Bill, the crazy outdoorsman. I also hosted at the same time, wrote and hosted another television series, Prisoners of Gravity, where I got to talk to the legends of science fiction, horror, fantasy, and comic books. So I've had this varied career. I've done things, for example, I wrote Kim Cattrall's HBO special, Sexual Intelligence, and I also wrote the funny jokes that an animated animatronic parrot at the Glasgow Science Museum would sprout out at people. In the year 2000, I had my own Y2K disaster. I was diagnosed with adult ADHD, and like most parents or adults who are diagnosed, it comes from starts with a call from the school saying, one of your kids is struggling and we'd like to have them tested. And then you read the tests and then you start thinking about adult ADHD. And when I read the list of adult ADHD symptoms, it was like being struck by lightning. Easily distracted, but can hyper-focus when interested. Restless, impatient, oh God. Traffic, ugh. Dislikes small talk, interrupts and intrudes. Well, forgetful, yep. Procrastinates all the time. Lousy at paperwork, you don't want to know. Finances a mess, yes. Makes small mistakes, loses things, lots started, not much finished. Prone to anxiety, yeah. Depression, twice. Self-medicates with caffeine, yeah. Nicotine, no. Alcohol, no. Cannabis, no. Stress, yes. Adrenaline, yeah. Shopping, yeah. Sex, yeah. Gambling, no. Work, yeah. It's sad because I could have taken some of that work time for the sex, but there you are. Now, when you get this diagnosis at midlife and you suddenly discover this, what's going on for you, this hidden saboteur, it is an emotional roller coaster. Suddenly things make sense. For example, I could now realize, no wonder I've had 5 or 6 car accidents, always at 5 or 6 miles an hour. The ADHD brain can be thought of as being sort of asleep. But under stress, it wakes up and we're alert. So I can walk out in front of 2,000 people and I'm fine. Doing a pile of receipts is murder. So you find ADHD people in the ER rooms, police, fire, rescue, show business, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, sales. When you find the right job with ADHD, you can flourish. The next emotion, there's that relief of understanding. Then there's the regret. If only, if only, if only. If only I'd known sooner. And I can still go there if I'm not careful. Luckily, I was pushed out of that by anger. The anger came from the people around me who were saying, you don't have ADHD. You don't have ADHD, because how could you? I've known you your whole life. People said, I lose my keys too. Yeah, I know you lose your keys too. How often? 5 times a day? No, right. 5 times. Yeah, I know you have a funny story about your keys. I have 3 funny stories a day. I'm 47, it's not funny anymore. And it's still happening. How can I produce a television show if I can't find my own keys? What kind of idiot am I? And then I find out, no, it's a processing issue. Another comment I got was, oh, you're so successful, it's your gift. It's your gift, it's made you who you are. Right, middle-aged, divorced, lonely, workaholic, few friends, low self-esteem, who can't enjoy any of his successes. If this is a gift, I want to re-gift it now. I actually did to my kids because it runs in families, it's highly genetic. Now, it's not all bad news, that's for sure. There are many successful ADHD people around, and they're running corporations, they're running Hollywood, media, you name it, athletes. The problem is that there are many positive aspects or potential positive aspects. For example, a number of studies now are showing that ADHD people score higher for creativity, at least on creativity tests in a laboratory settings. Whether it's as productive in the real world, who knows? The problem with the list of the positives is if you don't have some of them, you go, wow, I can't even do ADHD right, or ADD. The most infuriating one that struck me was always, well, nowadays, who doesn't? Everybody has ADHD. Now, at first when I heard that, everybody's ADHD, I was angry. Everybody has it. But you know what? It's true. Who here does not struggle now and then with paying attention, with getting motivated, with finishing something? We all do, right? We're talking about a spectrum disorder. In other words, the extreme. Everybody's ADHD? Sure. Everybody has height? How much? Everybody has weight. How much? You get to either end of the weight spectrum, it's a problem. There's nothing morally wrong with you, but it causes problems. So ADHD in adults, you're in the top 4%, 5%. Let's say 4% and be conservative. So that means you're struggling in those areas more than anyone else. And the interesting thing is the people who score that high on the tests are almost always finding their way into a doctor's office. It's not like people are going out and finding these people. They're coming to the doctor going, I don't understand what's wrong. And for women, it's almost always misdiagnosed as depression. I can't tell you how many women have held on to me crying to tell me that our program got them off antidepressants for the first time in a decade or more. So everybody has height. Everybody has some ADHD, but when it gets extreme, it's an issue. If you think of height, the top 4%, that's 6'5" and up. Nothing wrong with being 7 feet tall, but what if you don't know you're 7 feet tall? And you're in grade 3, and maybe it's an invisible condition, this tallness, and you go out in the schoolyard to play leapfrog with the other kids, and they all get hurt playing with you. And everyone says you're aggressive, bad home situation, better investigate, call family services. And you're in a special course for aggression. And it doesn't help because you're not aggressive. You're tall. They've labeled you aggressive. They should label you what you are, tall. And then you can deal with it. People say, I don't want my child labeled. Well, you don't mind the name gifted. You don't like that label. In fact, you've labeled your child Tyler or Ryan or Amanda or whatever. Oh, I don't like labels. Yeah. How many people here are trying to get a degree? Yeah, you want that label. So, ADHD, we all have it all, height, we have it all. The interesting thing is ADHD is just about as inheritable as your height is. About 80% of your height comes from your parents, about 79% of your ADHD from your parents. So you can't actually blame your parents, although that doesn't usually work. Now, I know the people around me were meaning to comfort me, but what happens is those kind of comments throw people off making progress. And luckily, I wasn't thrown off because I was making progress. I was experiencing the fourth emotion that comes up, hope. I'd found a doctor who understood ADHD because he had it himself. 13 years later, I still see him several times a year. I started using ADHD-friendly strategies, and I took on a holistic approach. Holistic means mind and body. So, although I'd never touched illicit drugs in my life, and I don't drink, I became a Ritalin kid at the age of 47. It was actually astonishing. The went, and I could listen to my kids when they talked to me on and on. I could listen to my second wife. That's why we're still together. So the turnaround with ADHD can be dramatic. And that's why, for me, it was so important to get the word out. And I took the anger and we made a documentary about it, starring Patrick McKenna and his wife Janice. If you've seen it, you'll know she's funnier than either of us. She's just so great. The documentary was astonishing. Now, Patrick was actually diagnosed on camera, but he knew going in that he, just because it runs in families, he knew, yeah, I fall into the spectrum. But learning about adult ADHD for them was absolutely powerful. It was a huge, huge breakthrough. Now, I knew the program would resonate, but I had no idea how much it would resonate. I'll just share one story. The email started arriving. I'm a security guard. And before I left for my shift, I saw that you were doing this program on ADD, so I thought I'd PVR it. When I got home at 2 in the morning, I thought I'd watch the first 5 minutes. 4 hours later, I reached the end of your 1-hour program. It took me 4 hours because I had to stop I couldn't hear what you were saying over my own weeping. Another guy had sent us a message saying, I'm working on the paperwork for my 3rd divorce and my 4th bankruptcy, and I decided that was it, and I bought some pills, and I was going to end it. 2 weeks Saturday, when the paperwork was done, I was checking out, and then I happened to catch your program on PBS, and I flushed the overdose down the toilet and saw my doctor the next morning in emergency. A week later, everything's shifting for me. 9 million Americans have this. Harvard study, one of the best I've seen, estimates it costs the US $77 billion. It costs Canada about $7 billion. The documentary won all kinds of awards. People came out of the woodwork about it. It was gratifying. Unleashed a flood of recognition, but this was the problem, was there were so many people who recognize themselves, and there's a shortage of resources. We were lucky. We tapped into some government funding that allowed us to build a website. We took some of the interviews, because we had all this footage and left over. We started making short ADHD-friendly films. The website took off, and that's where I think that's been the big discovery. I knew the TV show would do well. The website has been astonishing. 250,000 people a year find us, unique visitors. And on average, you're staying 10 minutes. Some years it's been 10 minutes that people are, and that's high. There's this shortage of experts and resources, and this is the power of the web. There's also a lot that the brain science itself don't know. Dr. Stephen Kurtz here in the documentary says, everything I was taught in medical school to deal with ADHD, I would now consider to be malpractice. And he's not that old. It's changing quickly. A book sits on your shelf 20 years old. The web can update things quickly. And ADHD video is very friendly for ADHD people. So we started with these 9 experts. There's now dozens more, and there's more to come once we find the time. And there are great books on ADHD, but 40% of ADHD people have dyslexia or a learning disorder. Wow. Patrick has trouble. That's why we could never use telecue in the red-green show. It's difficult when you've got dyslexia. So books are great, but they might as well be in hieroglyphics. The other challenge is that people can see a list. They don't recognize themselves on a list of symptoms. They're not good at self-assessment. You're born this way. You don't know any different. It's not like falling into depression. You go, I didn't used to feel this way. You're born this way. I don't talk too much. I'm interesting. I'm not a poor listener. You're boring, right? So you've got no way to measure it. So we wrote a book. Dr. Umesh Jain and I wrote a book, ADD Stole My Car Keys, 155 beliefs, signs, behaviors, some good, some bad, of ADHD individuals. The other thing was people didn't see themselves. So we took my character from the Red Green Show, took him out of the country, out of his overalls, put him in an outfit, gave him a wife, and started creating Bill's Adventures, ADD Ventures, and people watching these laughing, this is me, cringing. So the power to put a face to something has been tremendous, and we're working on many more of these videos. Another big issue with ADHD is that people are all alone. 1 in 25 adults have this. Maybe 1/5 of them are aware of it, and of those who are aware, who haven't been talked out of actually dealing with it, it's a tiny percentage of the 9 million who are dealing with this right now. So if you have this, getting a doctor who understands it, because they've got a lot of stuff to learn, finding an expert, you can't do it unless you live in a big city. But on the web, you have access to all of these experts. Then we started creating forums. Now, I didn't think forums were big. We were all actually warned, probably shouldn't have forums. They'll turn into a zoo. It'll be crazy. They'll be arguing and so on. But we put up the forums, and what happened is thousands of stories got shared. It's hard to read some of them without crying. They are so moving, what people poured out. And the support amongst people, once they created this safe space, once they saw the humor, the humanity of what we were doing, they embraced this safe space, this safe haven, and it's so self-policing. In 3 years, we've removed, I don't know what, maybe 8 postings. Incredible. We've recently updated the whole website so that now people can actually send private messages, form discussion groups that are closed. So if you want to talk about ADHD and PMS, you may not want everybody to hear what you're dealing with, and everybody may not want to hear what you're dealing with. You can form closed groups. So hugely powerful for people. The issue is I want to get people off the emotional roller coaster. ADHD is interesting. Finding out that you have ADHD is fascinating because it impacts every area of your life, and you can get stuck navel gazing. The thing is, there's so much you can do about this. There are so many tools and strategies that work on this. The problem is that the standard strategies don't always work. Yeah, you should always take frequent breaks. Not if you have ADHD. If you have ADHD and you take a break and get up for a few, you will never come back to it. Your wife will find you up on the roof re-shingling the house because you got distracted. So getting the tools to people, powerful. Another challenge is just educating. Last week I gave a talk at Penn State University, the home of positive psychology. They told me that they send all of their patients to 2 websites to educate themselves, to save time. The National Institute of Mental Health and Totally ADD. And they said, I actually prefer Totally ADD because it's so interesting and entertaining, even I'm sitting here listening. What's happening now is, of course, people are sending their kids or their doctors here, and their kids, their spouses, the parents who are telling them you're doing the wrong thing, yeah, go learn. So there's a lot of knowledge there, but knowledge is not power. Knowledge taken and done something with is powerful, but knowledge just sits there. You have to do something with it. And ADHD is an issue around getting up and actually doing, getting activated, self-activation. So people can fall, they're great in the hospital, and then or the doctor rather, at the doctor's office, or on the line with their coach, and they don't follow through. The biggest opportunity, I think, for the web is to keep people moving forward by providing support systems for them. Building habits takes time, it takes patience, you have to stick with it. All the things we don't do well. You have to check and see, am I better or worse? We're not good at assessing. I always ask, how am I doing to my wife? I don't know. So we need this ongoing support. Now I have a great onboarding support system, my wife, and everybody I know with ADHD tells me, I want an AVA once they meet her. But that's where Totally ADD, the website that we've created, can make a difference. We're doing it with webinars. They're not just a lecture, it's interactive. Myself and the expert having a conversation. Here we're actually people from Sydney, Australia, all over the world are dealing with, are learning mindful meditation. And of course we have social media. We're arming people with stuff they can send to defend their diagnosis. So they're using humor to forward this to their parents who are dismissive and so on. So every day we're getting all of this positive feedback. It's been absolutely incredible. And I don't know where it's going to go, but I can tell you, working with these people has been absolutely moving. Putting that, it's an amazing experience to be doing this. And I have to tell you, I said earlier, finding the right job is key. I'm in my 50s and I found the perfect job for me. Thank you very much.